Okay, welcome to our poetry workshop brought to you by Hope at Hand as a part of the 10th annual Jack's Poetry Fest. Every April, Hope at Hand partners with a consortium of poets, cultural institutions, art agencies, and poetry enthusiasts to celebrate National Poetry Month with a special festival of poetry. Hope at Hand is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that provides poetry therapy sessions for vulnerable and at-risk youth, which facilitates healing and personal growth through the use of poetry, creativity, art, and therapeutic approaches. Today's workshop, Only Read the Best, Game Changers in Poetry, featuring Laura Miner. Laura Miner's Bright Life, Animal Heart won the 2023 Minds of Fire Open Book Prize. Her first book of poems, Flowers as Mind Control, won the 2020 John Ciardi Poetry Prize. Her work has appeared in the Missouri Review, Plowshares, the Cortland Review, ARC, Quiddity International, and North American Review, among others. She studied poetry at Sarah Lawrence College, University of Florida, and Florida State University. And with that, Laura, take it away.
Thank you, Ruth. Hi, I'm Laura Miner. I am a poet and I work hard at it every day. That's all it is. It's not profundity, it's not clever. It's hard work and you have to write all the time as much as you can. And with our busy lives, it's hard to make space for poetry. But I try and do something every chance I get. Either it's a line here, a line there. For years, when I left poetry to become a country singer, I would write on cocktail napkins. I would write on anything that I could get my hands on. And then I had a big garbage bag full of poems that when I rejoined the game, the Poe biz, I started writing poems for real. And I never gave up. And that's really what it is never giving up. And when I say only read the best, it's not to sound exclusive. You should read as widely as you can all the time. But what you'll notice is that there's more people writing poetry than ever right now with the growth of the MFA business and the PhDs in creative writing, which you don't need. With the internet, you have everything at your fingertips. With local and community workshops are great too. You don't have to go through the system to be a great poet anymore. Um, One of the first poets I read was Marina Tsvetaeva, and it blew my mind that you could be angry in poetry. And I fell in love with her so deeply that she was all I read for a really long time. And I even cut my hair like hers once when I was 23. So you're going to become obsessed with great poets. I hope that's okay with you. What we're going to do here is I'm going to go through some slides with you, and I want you to generate as much as you can. That is the game, and to think fast on your feet and to be as wild as you can. Wild nights, were I with thee, Emily Dickinson, and also a favorite. But I'm going to try to introduce you some new poets today. And Hope at Hand, which is my favorite nonprofit, poetry nonprofit, I will make sure they have a list of all the authors and the poems that I talk about today. I was once an art model in college to help pay for everything, and the professor projected Egon Schiele, his paintings over me while I was trying to memorize Song of Myself on the wall while I was staying still. And it brought a certain amount of surrealism into the room. And so I've been kind of thinking about that ever since, that it's going to be a little chaotic to write poetry today because I'm a little chaotic. And to my left is a large laundry pile because I've been working on my book for the whole week straight. I want to meet some of these deadlines in May. So I'm working hard, and it takes up your
You're muted,
I'm
Laura.
sorry, Laura. I muted you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Did anybody hear anything?
Yeah, we're okay.
Okay. So I have about 300 books still on my shelves, but I've culled about 20 here. Um, I do that every 6 months with poetry books, just because, I mean, I had a professor once that said, "How can you decide?" And I said, "Because the poems that move me stay on the shelves. The poets that blow my mind stay on the shelves. When you read a book of poetry, it should be like you got struck by lightning. I mean, there's a reason for that Emily Dickinson quote, no fire could warm me, take the top of my head off. We are not writing prose, and I'll give you a line from my new book. This is not television acting, this is the theater. So Rita Dove said that poetry at its best, language at its best, is most compressed and most distilled. And over 40 years of narrative poetry, we've gotten really close to prose with just prose with line breaks. And I'm not um, condemning narrative poetry, I write it as well. But there's more to lyricism and the density required of poetry than just strictly narrative poetry has created a trend of sorts. So I'd like to get back to some of the more powerful, intense practitioners of poetry that I've loved over the years and that have stayed on my shelves. So as the slides go, you're going to have a prompt with a quote next to it by a game changer, kind of giving you some advice. And I want you to put your pen to paper or to put your hands to the keyboard and write as much as you can. Generate for 1 hour as much as you can. And then on the 26th of this month, I'm giving a revision workshop. If you care to, please come back and pick your favorite thing that you generated today, and we'll revise it together with some tips I learned from Ilya Kaminsky, who is a game changer and a great poet and a good friend. I hope to change your life today, and let's get started, Ruth. Go to the first slide. All right, here we go. That's me, only reading the best. And the next one. Okay, on the poets everyone loves, the game changers. Go ahead and start with this. Let me see if I can change this. All right, here we go. Yep. Kim Adonicio, there's actually an error with this quote, but I'll say it out loud to you. Maybe you're one of those people who writes poems, but rarely reads them. Let me put this as delicately as I can. If you don't read, your writing is going to suck. I can't stress this enough. I answered a Facebook post the other day that said, what would you tell your young poet self if you could now? And I said to read more poetry. You cannot just show up at the table um, and not have something that has inspired you to be there. You can't just start writing poetry without reading poetry. They go hand in hand. And so as I read this Marina Svetaeva poem, I'd like you to go ahead and start writing. What's the first thing you saw when you woke up today? Describe it in image, metaphor, and simile. Keep going until I say the next slide, okay? This is one of my favorite poems. It's called An Attempt at Jealousy. How is your life with the other one? Simpler, isn't it? One stroke of the oar, then a long coastline, and soon even the memory of me will be a floating island in the sky, not on the waters, spirits. Spirits, you will be sisters and never lovers. How is your life with an ordinary woman without Godhead? Now that your sovereign has been deposed and you have stepped down, how is your life? Are you fussing, flinching? How do you get up? The tax of deathless vulgarity. Can you cope with it, poor man? Scenes and hysterics. I've had enough. I'll rent my own house. How is your life with the other one now you that I chose for my own? More to your taste, more delicious is it, your food? Don't moan if you sicken. How is your life with an image? You who walked on Sinai. How is your life with a stranger from this world? Can you be frank? Love her, or do you feel shame like Zeus's reins on your forehead? How is your life? Are you healthy? How do you sing? How do you deal with the pain of an undying conscience, poor man? How is your life with a piece of market stuff at a steep price? After Carrara marble, how is your life with the dust of plaster now? God was hewn from stone, but he is smashed to bits. How do you live with one of 1,000 women after Lilith? Sated with newness, are you? Now you are grown cold to magic. How is your life with an earthly woman without a sixth sense? Tell me, are you happy? Not? In a shallow pit. How is your life, my love? Is it as hard as mine with another man? That's Marina for you. She is merciless, and that's what I expect of poetry as well. Um, let's talk about another merciless poet. Let's go to the next slide, Ruth. All right. Now, Merwin. Oh, wow. He is amazing. Any work of art that makes one very simple demand on anyone who genuinely wants to get in touch with it, and that is to stop. You've got to stop what you're doing, what you're thinking, and what you're expecting, and just be there for the poem for however long it takes. This is a devotion, people. So the prompt right now is, and again, don't lift your pen, just keep going until I stop and go to a new slide. What nature did you see today, if any? Grass, flowers, trees, something in your home. Describe them in detail. Let them take your mind somewhere surreal. Keep going until the next slide. All right, this is Wanda Coleman, who was largely unrecognized until Terrence Hayes, another poet, put her Wicked Enchantment book out into the world. She is a game changer because she invented a new sonnet. She also wrote for television, and you can find her on IMDb. She didn't knock over her water in class, though, huh? All right, American Sonnet 70. In his grace, he was silent. In his silence, he called God. My father took his murder with grace. They beat his head for decades. From 1914 to 1991, they beat him until a tumor rose from the wound and devoured his eyes. They beat him until his future became an unfruitful past. The tumor grew arms and pulled him headfirst into the underworld. Who are they, the famous tyrannical? They who control production and distribution, the greedy, they who always go around shitting perfumed shit. And now they turn their beatings on his son, my brother, on his daughter, my sister, on his second son, my baby brother. They raise their killer fists and beat me, simple. They raise their killer fist, beating and beating until they are certain no one raps back from the other side of the tombstone. God, in my smoke, I call you. Ugh, she is something. Never be afraid to use your rage when it is projected over the things in your natural world. It's not all flowers and poetry. It's not all music and love and passion. There is a grit that comes with poetry that you've got to have to get through it. Um, at my most recent visiting assistant professor job, the students dubbed me gritty Taylor Swift. And I said, I'll take it. I'll take it because she's doing the work too, just in a different lane. Let's see. Um, never be afraid of your anger and never be afraid of sounding crazy in your poetry. Um, The Art of Recklessness by Dean Young is a craft book you should pick up. It encourages to be wild on the page. I'm not much for scansion. I'm not much for formal. I like to reel and to sing. And when I read great poetry, that's what it does for me. So let's move on to the next slide. And you will get a chance to speak out or read your work or whatever you'd like to do at the end. Okay, so this is Natalie Diaz. She's when my brother was an Aztec has probably kept her press comfortable for a while. She's very popular. The prompt is, who did you think of when you first woke up today? A person. Describe it in an image, metaphor, and simile. Keep the exposition to a minimum. But for now, I want magic on the page. Emily Dickinson is always with me. Image, metaphor, and simile. Keep going until the next poem or slide. And this is by Rita Dove. I think I mentioned it maybe. Poetry is a language at its most distilled and most powerful. We are not prose writers. This is the theater. It's not television acting. You'll see that in my new book. All right, Jimmy Eagle's Hot Cowboy Boots Blues. On June 26, 1975, two FBI agents drove into the Jumping Bull property on the Sioux Reservation, allegedly in pursuit of Jimmy Eagle, a teen accused of stealing a pair of cowboy boots. Jimmy Eagle, them FBI boys are just a throbbing for you since you put on them pretty red-handed hot cowboy boots. Better hope your red pickup grows wings and flies fast, 'cause Uncle Sam's dreaming down engines and red Dakota grass. The crime's not so much, but they don't belong to you. What's a wild bird like you need with white man shoes? Yes, Jimbo, the feds have a warrant named you. Soar, Jumping Bull's Golden Hills, boy, and defend your coup. Jimmy Eagle, the brass is straight lamping for you. They're hot, and you're red-handed with them sharp cowboy boots. The crime's not so much, but they don't belong to you. What's a wild bird like you need with white man shoes? Now, Jimmy, they're calling in cavalry ghosts of the past. Head for the stockpiled commodes and arrows, man. Hope that they last, Jimmy, baby. The government's on your tail with a green light to shoot, worked up and tizzied for some hot goddamn red-handed cowboy boots. The crime's not so much, but they don't belong to you. What's a wild bird like you need with white man shoes? Go ahead, Jimmy, stomp them new shoes. Dance up the sand, make 'em flash, 'cause they're looking to bury bullets in your brown barefoot ass. In poetry, you can be funny, you can be scary, you can be anything you want to be. Um, One thing that really works for me, and I can see it from this as well, is repetition. If you get stuck, repeat the best line in your poem again in the poem and keep going. Next slide, Ruth. All right. Now, I've just discovered in the last 5 years Rosemary Tonks. She is from the UK, and she took the top of my head off right away. I was talking about her like I was in love with her for a month. Nobody would stop it. No one stopped me because I was just that enchanted. Um, some of the words are a little different because we don't speak the King's English exactly anymore, do we? All right. Also, this prompt, why them? Why did that person enter your mind this morning? What do you like or dislike about the thought of them? What is troubling you generally? Keep going with the brutal truth until the next slide. And this is by Yusuf Kobayaka, one of my favorite poets. And I did have the wonderful opportunity to see him read. And I'll tell you, when he reads, it's like jazz. He just kind of sways a little bit. Students often have such a lofty idea of what a poem is, and I want them to realize that their own lives are where the poetry comes from. The most important is to respect the language, to know the classical rules, even if only to break them, and to be prepared to edit, to revise, to shape. I can't tell you this enough. I hope you rejoin me on the 26th because you have to learn to love revision, to like poetry. When a new thought comes in after you've written something you already like and you make it better, it's a magical feeling. All right, so this is Bedouin of the London Morning by Rosemary Tonks. We come into the cafe at dawn. There are water fogs, and civilization is white. If you knew the exotic disgust that grips me. After another bestial night, as we come in, broken, dark with inks and dusts and gases, like those whose private apartment is the street. After an all-night conversation, when the street wind hangs on snarling to your coat, if you knew my half-erotic convulsion of loathing. For the night, I'm like a sleeper, when his mouth is stopped up by some terrible mud crust. the dream has crammed there. And the soul goes pressing up against, trying to scream with hydrophobia and can only murmur. Some love thought turns his mouth to blood with longing. Only a moment later, in the workman's cafe, if you knew the almost voluptuous sense of frustration when you're broken and the morning's alcoholic as a lily. Rosemary Tonks. Um, grab up some of her work. Now let's switch to somebody completely different. Next slide. Sharon Olds, who Satan Says is just experiencing its 45th anniversary, and Copper Canyon Press, I want to say, is releasing her, maybe not, but they're releasing a 45th anniversary of Satan Says. You should grab it up. All right, today's prompt, this moment's prompt. How do you feel today? Compare your thoughts to other things in the world. No ideas, but in things. William Carlos Williams. Compare your feelings to other events in the world. Keep going gently until the next slide. And it's okay if you make mistakes, because as Merwin says here, I needed my mistakes in their order to get me here. Be unafraid as Sharon Olds in your poetry, is all I can say. All right, this is from the book Odes, and this is the Single Ladies Ode. And then, when I have been single for years, bell with a phantom clapper, I wonder how I took in, how I gave my mouth and throat over to almost the whole thing. I remember relaxing, as if reminding myself no harm would come, and then fitting my valve like a cape around the glands his shoulders, as if clothing in softness that part of the man, and the part of me which was the part of music and speech, as if he were a song I was pouring forth by taking in. I don't remember how I breathed, but I breathed. And my fortune was such that I did nothing with a man which I did not want to do. If I'd been more adventurous, I could have done things with men I did not love, who did not love me, but I did not want to. It seemed too extreme a trust to give. So I've done it with hardly anyone. Done it a lot with hardly anyone. Well, I have lost my taste for my ex over these years since he left. He seems covered with her now, covered with her. So what I miss the most about the that act I had never heard of or imagined, which I thought the first man who gave me the chance at it had that moment invented, is not a specific person, but a man in general's familiar which could take its strong flight along my inner swallow way. I miss not the representative of its kind. I miss the man I have in mind, the brain and soul behind the organ that comes inside the man I have not met yet. And be prepared if you do get this book. It's got all kinds of fun things. Ode to the condom, ode to the clitoris, ode of withered cleavage. It's pretty funny. And with that, I'll say humor belongs in poetry. We need it to brush up against, like sandpaper, all the sentiment. Um, Sometimes when poems can become too sentimental, you want to take lemon juice and squeeze it over the poem and give it a little sandpaper so that astringency takes away the sweet and adds a little salt. Nappy Edges by Ntozake Shange, one of my teachers, is one of my favorites as well because she was fearless as well. Next slide, please. A poem is a record of a discovery, Ted Kooser. And I'll say this about Ted Kooser. When he was nominated for the Pulitzer by his friends, he was raking leaves in the yard and he fell backwards into the leaves. And I find that to be one of the most joyous images in poetry I've ever heard of. This prompt, what I want you to do now. What do you want to happen today, Saturday, April 2025. How do you imagine it? Keep going courageously until the next slide. All right, this is Nappy Edges by Ntozake Shange, A Cross-Country Sojourn. St. Louis, such a colored town, a whiskey black space of history and neighborhood, forever ours, to Lawrenceville, where the only road open to me was cleared by colonial slaves, whose children moved, never seems like mended the torments of the Depression, the stains of demented spittle, dropped from lips of crystal women, still making independence flags, from St. Louis on a Halloween's Eve to the veiled prophet usurping the mystery of Mardi Gras, made it mine, though the queen was always fair. That parade of pagan floats and tambourines commemorating me, unlike the lonely walks with liberal trick or treaters back to my front door, bag half empty. My face enough to scare anyone I passed, a colored kid. What a gas. Here, one, a tree. Wandering the horizon, dipped in blues and unintended bones. Used to hugs, drawls, rhythm and decency. Here a tree waiting to be hanged. Sumner High School, squat and pale on the corner, like our vision was to be vague, our memory of the war that made us free to be forgotten, becoming paler, a linear movement from South Carolina to Missouri, freedmen, Landon and Jackie Wilson's Yelp, daughters of the manumitted women and Tina Turner's grinds. This is Chuck Berry's town, disavowing miscegenation in any situation, and they let us be. Electric Blues and Bo Diddley's Can't. Rockin' Pneumonia and the Boogie Woogie Flu, the slop and short fried heads running always to the river from Chambersburg, Little Italy. I passed every day at the sweet shop and was afraid. The cops raided truants regularly. After dark, I would not be seen with any other colored saying, loving my life in the Borg. Seriously expecting to be gnarled. Hey, nigga, over here, and behind the truck lay 5 hands clasping chains round the trees, 4 more suckling steel. Hey, over here, this is the borderline, a territorial dispute. Hey, over here, cars loaded with families, fellas from the factory, 1 or 2 practical nurses. Black became our trenches. Some dig into cement with elbows under hinges, not to be seen in your hometown. After sunset, we suck up our shadows. 2. I will sit here, my shoulders brace an enormous oak. Dreams waddle in my lap, round to Miss Bertha's, where little Richard gets his process, runs backward to the rose bushes, a drunk man lying down the block to the nuns in pink habits, praying in a pink chapel. My dreams run to meet Aunt Mary. My dreams draw blood from old sores. These stains and scars are mine. This is my space. I am not moving. Uh, whew. When that energy gets going in your poems, don't touch it. Don't feel bad. Don't feel embarrassed. Just keep going until you feel the intensity is so much that you have to stop the poem. Sometimes people say to end on an image, but I like the ending of this poem by Ntozake Shange because it's a declaration, and that's something in itself too. Let's move on. Next slide, please. All right. Not very well known, Frank Stanford. We'll talk about it. All right, Ted Kooser. If I don't take the risk, I'll wind up with a bloodless poem. I have to be out there on the edge. That's one of my favorite poetry quotes as well. You don't want a bloodless poem. Every poem you write should feel like you just went through something and that you have learned something new about yourself by the end. Um, I tend to treat when I teach poetry, it's almost like a sport. Um, and that's why I say only read the best. Because if you start reading mediocre books of poetry, your poetry will follow suit. And I don't want that for you. It's just like music. If you want to be a good listener of music, you listen to everything. If you want to be a good poet, you read the best and you read widely and decide for yourself. Yusuf Komunyakaa again. I'm uncomfortable with the focus on the poet and not on the poem. I've seen this over the course of 25 years in poetry. The cart before the horse. Don't think about fame. Don't think about power. Don't think about reading your poems in front of people. I don't even like reading my poems in front of people. Um, I like writing poetry and I like publishing poetry. And I want you to read it alone in your house and not to see my face or to hear my voice or know where I come from. You'll get that from the poem. But you've got to stop thinking about where poetry can take you. And it's put it this way, it's the only art form. If you're a bad singer, people will leave your show. If you're a bad instrumentalist, people will leave your concert. If you're a bad sportsman, people won't want to come back to watch you perform. It's the same thing with poetry. Focus on your own poetry, and that's it. Um, don't put the focus on the poet, because right now we're going through something in United States poetry because of the acceleration of the MFA and the PhD as a business for a college, a way to make money. We have seen poets explode, and that's just a wonderful thing in the world. But also, uh, fame is a herd passion. Don't try and get famous through poetry. It's one of the only things that you can do that can fool people into thinking you're a good poet just by who you are. It's all identity. So forget identity and only focus on how good the poem is. All right. So with that, start a new stanza, line, poem, whatever. Take a moment to revise and give it a working title, whatever you're working on. Make the ending an image or a declaration, I might say. Heighten the truth and heighten the beauty. Be fearless. This is your poem. Patience, humility, and fortitude. I used to run marathons, sort of half marathons, really, to be, if I'm being honest. But I did a bunch of them. And the only thing I would say to myself the whole time is patience, humility, fortitude. Keep working as I close out my thoughts here on this poem. So Frank Stanford, Arkansas poet, grew up as an in an interracial community as a farmer, and he had a terrible ending, but he wrote some wild stuff, and he wrote one really long poem called "From the Battlefield, where the moon says I love you." As you write, hear these words, okay? You must forgive poor Francis down there by the water, writing his poem, because he is so melancholy and afraid one of his girlfriends is pregnant, for he knows not what he does. Neither did his namesake. I let them read the minds of the earth so that they may know me. I used them. I have come here again into this poem as the Lord. I have used these two boys, but if you could only know the joy they have given me, no matter their sins, I love a sinner. Who knows who has sinned? That is why I wish everyone could see what little Francis, the rich boy, has been getting to, what he's been stalking like a wolf. I wish it was a moving picture, him on the river, and all as he says, we could get something across. I am glad I am doing the talking, not Francis, not my father, not the Holy Ghost. All of their styles must flow into mine. They will bring you pleasure, and like lovers, you will dissolve in me. This is the voice of the Lord, as surely as Matthew is. I'm speaking. Help me, Mr. Rufus. Help me through this child who is writing his little saga on account of his miserable loneliness, his love of his own death like a brother, and the bleeding Francis is whispering poems in his ear while he sleeps. He goes on writing his name in the water, his prayers to women and the living, not knowing it will never be read, although knowing he can go in peace because he will always be unknown. At least that. Oh, he gets me worked up. Okay. So, thinking about that, there's some other people you should write down. Ross Gay. I went to Sarah Lawrence with Ross Gay, and he has been amazing ever since. Catalog of Unabashed Gratitude is something you should look into. I'll read you the first line, just because I just love this poem. It goes on for about 10 pages, but we don't have time for that. Friends, will you bear with me today? For I have awakened from a dream in which a robin made with its shabby wings a kind of veil, behind which it shimmied and stomped something from the south of Spain, its breast aflare, looking me dead in the eye from the branch that grew into my window, coochie-cooing my chin. So check out Ross Gay if you want some excitement imbued into your work. I would also recommend Retke as a long time favorite. In a Dark Time, from the Far Field book is an amazing poem. And um, you should write the times, as Nina Simone says. Your work right now should reflect what we're all going through right now in this country. And that's how an artist becomes an artist, is reflecting the times and keeping with the times. Um, I would also recommend Josh Bell, No Planet Strike, his first book. It is a game changer for real. I'll read your first couple lines from this one as well. Um, Epithalamion. I've never been good at saying that word. Epithalamion. Ex post facto. But here's the thing about this poem. Look at how he enters the poem. Your first and your last lines have to be on point. One, Ramona, you went ahead and married the Tanis Christian bank machine in Illinois. For 30 years, his infant lips have cycled towards you like an escalator across his tilted face. Where was my invitation? What poem was I writing? Every bride is gartered for a reason. Every bride is a lonesome holocaust, contains secret prophecies she whispers only to the buffet table. Tell me you don't want to read the rest of that poem after you hear something like that. The Tanis Christian Bank Machine is my favorite there. One of my first favorites was also Stanley Kunitz, who uh, breaks my heart. I did have a chance to see him read when he was close to 100 years old. And let me tell you, it was like my heart leapt out of my chest because, to use a cliche, be wary of cliches as well, people. Um, I learned that along the way too. You want to X out any cliches, anything abstract, heart, happiness, loneliness, moon stuff, all of that. Go ahead and replace it with four nouns or an image. And I'll talk more about that on my revision workshop. But the portrait by Stanley Kunitz is something to behold. My mother never forgave my father for killing himself. That's a first line. So think about your first lines and have every line in your poem live up to the best line in the poem. There's no room for exposition. There's no room for talky talk. I'd highly recommend Dancing in Odessa, Kaminsky's first book. It will change your life. I've tried to copy him as much as I can. My first book, I had an author's prayer, which he has before he even begins his book, an author's prayer. If I speak for the dead, I must leave this animal of my body. And he told me he used to go in Barnes and Noble and just sit in the poetry section and just read for as long as he could poetry. And that's the tip I'll pass on to you. Linda Hull, Ghost Money. All right, Ruth, I want to give you guys time. So let's go to the next slide. If I read a book and it, okay, this is not Ted Kooser. This is Emily Dickinson. Mistakes are fine. If I read a book and it makes my whole body so cold, no fire can ever warm me, I know that it is poetry. Um, so here are some basic revision rules. If you can't come to my next workshop, read widely across all poets with great inclusivity and image, metaphor, simile, lyricism, compression, and distillation. Again, this is not prose. Next slide, please. All right, this is Sean Singer and W.S. Merwin, who gave him his Yale Book Award. The Yale Younger was his first book, and Merwin chose it. And he has started, I will take some credit. I offered him the idea, and I never took it myself, which is fine because he's doing great at it, and I don't know as much about poetry as he does. But he has a Substack. If you're not in the position to move for an MFA and you can't afford a low res program and you don't want to get a PhD at this point, go visit the Substack, please. It's more than an MFA or PhD could ever offer you, and it's free. They do ask for a slight donation of $7 a month if you have the means. But if you read every one of these Substacks, that's an MFA. That's a PhD. I can't begin to tell you how much he's done for my work. He's my absolute biggest poetry mentor right now. And so please go ahead and jump on over to seansinger.substack.com. Next slide, please. Okay, so before you give your feedback, I'd like to hear some stuff, some lines that you wrote just now. Does anybody want to volunteer? Something like really cool that they wrote during this hour that you wouldn't have written otherwise? Please, Susan, let's hear it.
Well, I've got a little bit confused and I actually put everyone together, but out of everything that I wrote, the one that kind of got me
Yeah.
uh was I think the maybe the third or fourth prompt. The brutal truth is he loves me more than I love myself. A truth that does not spare me from his stunning self and therefore from my stunning self.
Nice. See what I mean about the energy? You just the brutal truth is that does anybody else want to say something or speak out or read a line or a poem? Please unmute yourself because I'm not good with technology. I'm trying to view everybody if I put multiple speaker. No, that's not it.
I just want to say thank you so much for all this. It's like really amazing, amazing your energy even amazing.
Thank you.
Yes,
I'm,
and I'm especially as a Russian, I just want to say especially thank you for such a good, you choose the best translation of Marina Tsvetaeva because there is like about 10 translations of this particular
yes.
poem and they're all awful. But this one is like really, really very close to text and also by the energy of her. So thank you for feeling this and thank you for sharing it and thank you um, for everything you say and said and bring today. Really, I'm a poet myself, and I feel that that energy. And now I want to write. Like you literally made me want to stop. I was on a bicycle. I was listening your on a bicycle, like all the reading, and it made me stop in the cafe and start like writing some lines. So thank you, and it's such a great pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming. I really mean it. Anybody else want to share anything or a line here or there? Just, you should really be proud of yourself for just making time for poetry for 1 hour. No one? Well, I'm sure you all wrote some cool beginnings and some interesting lines. And I'll tell you, Russian poetry was my first favorite. Larry Levis was my first favorite. The blues were my first favorites. Jack Gilbert, Terrence Hayes, David Berman, um, Sylvia Plath, Morning Song. Ocean Vuong and Diane Seuss, as well as Jericho Brown, who both Diane Seuss and Jericho Brown just recently won the Pulitzer. So I would highly recommend you read everything by these poets, and I'll make sure that Hope at Hand has a list of the poems that I kind of poets and poems that I talked about today. It's a great list to get started. Nothing makes you want to write poetry as much as reading great poetry. So I hope you end with that and that poets don't make any money. So buying their work really matters. Even if you go on to gift it to someone else, like I said, keep only the best on your shelves. And with that, Ruth, I'll turn it over so you can talk about our sponsors today.
Okay,
Sorry,
thank you.
I have a question. Can you hear
Oh
me?
yeah, yeah.
Sorry, just two questions. Because you listed out, so I don't think you see me. Wait, I'll just open a video.
Hi,
Okay,
Vincent.
sorry. Hi, it's Vincent here. I know it's a bit random, but is there like a list of resources of the books that you just mentioned? Because I felt that a lot of them were very good. That's the first question. Because the poems were very good and then they had a lot of energy. The second one was you mentioned Ocean Vuong.
Yeah.
So Ocean Vuong is like a super like I've been listening to his talks and everything. He's like a
Yes.
like a
Amazing.
like a Zen like a stage. Like he's like very very cool. Is there any books that you have read that like similarly will bring you into different worlds that will like in a way.
Yeah, no, he's amazing. And one thing I'll say
Mm,
about the poetry business in the world is that a lot of people, when somebody gets to be an overnight success, people kind of start hating on them. And then, they pass that bitterness and that negativity around. And I don't like that for poetry. So I immediately went out and found his Night Sky with Exit Wounds, his first book, and I read it and I was just in love. And I was like, it's jealousy. And I'll tell you one more craft element that I love about using jealousy in a positive way. It's called the envy test. When you read only the best, you'll come across a line, and I think it was Joseph Stroud who taught me this. The envy test works. When you see something that's brilliant and knocks your skull off, you will want to go right then, like just like you said earlier. You will want to go right. Just at that moment, you'll be on fire, and it'll come out of you. So completely reading only the best. It's again, it's not exclusive. It's strategic for you to cut through all the mediocrity, okay? And Vincent, I'm going to make sure that Hope at Hand has a list that they can email to their participants, okay? Yeah, excellent question.
Thank
All
you,
right, if
thank you,
there's
thank
no
you very
one
much.
else, yeah, absolutely. If there's no one else, and I have I have like a Blue Sky, an Instagram, and a Facebook right now. I think my website's down, but when it comes back up, you'll have a way to contact me. I mean, I take students in for money, that sort of thing. Most of us do, just so you
Emails,
know.
I think. Yeah,
Yeah,
send the email.
Laura L. Minor at Gmail. Just I'm not afraid of answering questions.
Sorry, what again? Laura? What?
Laura
Laura L?
L. Minor at Gmail.
Got it. I'll email you.
Yeah, please do. I want there to be more poets in the world. Look at what we're facing down right now. It's not a lot of poetry, it's a lot of badness. And poetry heals. Poetry saves lives, even. Poetry saved my life. So with that, Ruth,
Okay, thank you so much, Laura. This is a QR code to a survey, and we would love to hear from you about your thoughts for this workshop. So you can just click this QR code. You'll also be getting in follow-up email with this as well if you're not able to do this. We want to thank our sponsors who made this possible: Jack's Poetry Fest, Florida Arts and Culture, the Cultural Council of Greater Jacksonville, Poetry Foundation, Dolores Barr's Weaver Fund, Jim Moran Foundation, and the City of Jacksonville, Florida. And so with that, I want to thank everyone for coming, and also everyone's patience for earlier. And do please tune in for our future workshops all month. And have a great Saturday. Bye, everybody.
thank you for coming.
Bye. Thank you.